Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't walk up to the microphone. She detonated it. One sentence in, and the entire room shifted because what she said wasn't politics, wasn't performance, wasn't even a speech. It was a challenge to the most powerful people in the country, delivered with a level of certainty that made everyone listening sit a little straighter. She didn't ease in. She didn't warm up. She went straight for the truth she believed no one else was willing to say out loud. And the moment she did, you could feel the air get heavier. She looked directly at the cameras and said what everyone else was dancing around.
What I realize is they just told their stories of being raped and being abused, being victimized, being manipulated, being coerced, and basically held in a prison of captivity of sexual abuse while they were young teenagers and extremely young, vulnerable women. And in Jeffrey Epstein's home and the places they went with him, they saw the most powerful people in the world in his pictures, and they saw him with those people. Can you imagine how terrifying it would be to name names like that? These are some of the richest, most powerful people in the world that could sue these women into poverty and homelessness. Yeah, it's a scary thing to name names, but I will tell you, I'm not afraid to name names. And so if they want to give me a list, I will walk in that Capitol on the House floor and I'll say every damn name that abused these women. I can do that for them, and I'd be proud to do it. Now, another thing, this is not about politics, and this is a boiling point in American history where the American people, just like Roe just said, there's become two Americas. There's the America for the rich and the powerful and the elite, where they never face any struggles or problems and never experience what real America goes through. And then there's forgotten America that faces all the problems and deals with all the issues and never gets justice for being sexually assaulted and raped by a monster. It shouldn't exist anymore, and people are sick of it. So let's recognize the fact that the administration before and the one before it and the one before it and the one before it and before it never did anything about this. So this isn't one political party or the other. It's a culmination of everyone worked together to silence these women and protect Jeffrey Epstein and his cabal. And this is not just rich, powerful people. Think his drivers, his maids, his chefs, all the people, people that worked in his home, security guards. I heard one story from a young woman that was being raped by Jeffrey Epstein when he was out on work release while he was serving time in prison and had an ankle monitor on his leg. Guess what? There was a police officer outside that door. So this list of names is quite a list of names, and it doesn't extend just in the rich, powerful circles. It extends down to the very bottom where people were paid. And again, I will say this, there's victims suffering today in similar circumstances, and they're terrified to name the names of the people that are currently abusing them. And so with these brave, courageous women fighting this fight, this is a fight for women and children and any person that is facing sexual abuse and rape and captivity and human trafficking right now. And so here's what I ask you in the press. Don't go for salacious headlines. Go for the truth and defend these women and help those of us in Congress that are crossing our political party lines for doing the right thing and trying to do it together. And thank you, Roe, and thank you, Thomas. And now
These women aren't silent because they're confused. They're silent because they're terrified. Not terrified of Epstein, terrified of the people around him. Terrified of the names behind the doors they were taken through, the faces framed in the photos on his walls, the power connected to every hallway of that house. She reminded the audience watching at home that these weren't grown, established adults. These were teenagers, vulnerable, isolated, manipulated. Kids who walked into a world they didn't understand. only to realize they were surrounded by people who could destroy their lives with a phone call. And then she said the line that froze the room. If they want to give me the list, I'll say every demon name myself. Not whispered, not implied, spoken with the kind of conviction that made everyone else look around and think, did she really just say that on camera? Because she wasn't just calling out abusers. She was calling out the entire system that let those abusers get that close in the first place. A system, she claimed, that didn't just fail. It actively protected the wrong people. But Greene didn't stop at the victims. She turned the spotlight on the audience, telling them to imagine what it feels like to stand in front of the world and accuse someone with infinite money, influence, and connections. Someone whose lawyers could bury you. Someone whose allies could crush your career, your finances, your name. She painted the picture plainly. These women could be sued into poverty. And that fear, according to her, is exactly why the silence lasted so long. Then came the shift. The moment her voice hardened, just slightly, as she said this wasn't about left or right, red or blue. She called it a boiling point in American history, a moment where the country has split into two versions of itself. One for the rich, the elite, the untouchable, and one for the forgotten, the working class, the people who face consequences for everything while the powerful face consequences for nothing. She said the quiet part out loud. Multiple administrations, past and present, did nothing. Not one, not two, but many. Leaders changed, parties changed, but the silence stayed the same. According to her, the people in charge didn't fail accidentally. They failed consistently. And the victims weren't just ignored. They were outnumbered, outfunded, outpowered. Then Greene expanded the circle of accountability even further. She said this wasn't only about billionaires or politicians. She reminded everyone that Epstein's operation wasn't run by one man. It was built by an entire network of people who made everything possible. Drivers, house staff, assistants, security guards, chefs, gardeners, people who saw things, heard things, looked the other way. Some, she suggested, because they were paid. Others because speaking up meant personal danger. And that's when she dropped one of the most disturbing claims. A young woman said Epstein assaulted her while he was out on so-called work release, supposedly under punishment. He wore an ankle monitor. He was being supervised. And yet he still found a way. Greene emphasized the detail that made everyone's stomach drop. A police officer was standing outside the door the entire time. That image alone told a story deeper than any headline ever could. But she insisted the real danger isn't just in the past. According to her, there are victims right now living the same nightmare. Victims scared to speak up. Victims whose abusers are still walking free, protected by the same kind of culture that silenced Epstein's victims years ago. The same fear, the same pressure, the same threat. She said the fight these women are taking on today isn't only about justice for what happened before. It's about preventing the same horrors from continuing in the shadows today. And then Greene did something unexpected. She didn't plead with the press, she confronted them. She said they need to stop chasing sensational headlines and start chasing the truth. Stop focusing on political drama and focus on the women. She urged them to support the voices coming forward instead of reducing them to viral moments. She told them to stand with the lawmakers willing to cross their own party lines to confront the issue, even when it puts them at odds with their own leadership. She called out the media's responsibility, not to sell stories, but to protect the people who can't protect themselves. She ended by thanking Roe and Thomas, the lawmakers standing beside her, creating an image of something the country rarely sees: united purpose. Not just agreement, but a shared mission: to expose the truth, protect the vulnerable, and crack open a system that stayed sealed for far too long. The reason her words hit so hard wasn't just the raw emotion behind them. It was the implication woven between every line. If someone is willing to publicly say, "Give me the names and I'll speak them myself," then what does she already know? What does she believe the public still hasn't seen? And what happens if those names ever do come out? People watching didn't just hear a speech, they heard a warning shot. A message to anyone who ever counted on silence lasting forever. Because once someone says the truth out loud, even in pieces, those pieces start to form a picture. One that becomes harder and harder to ignore. That if you want more deep dives into the stories others won't touch, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and turn on notifications. More eye-opening breakdowns are on the way. And trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next.